So when we're talking about the ethical value, the fact that we're talking about the cause, the actual action, the intentional action to then decide its ethical value. If you want to just think of this in some other more broader ethical terms, it's a bit different from, say, a utilitarian idea of what ethics is, whereby you say, well, what makes an action ethical action? You've got to entirely just look at the result. If it leads to a good result, then it's ethical. The ends justifies the means type approach. Now, later, some Buddhist traditions would, under very special circumstances, make that kind of argument. But I think those kinds of circumstances are not, they're just very, very specific and unique cases. But then we're talking about that, the action, and then what kind of result it leads to. Let's then move into the results side. So let's say, in general, we've got wholesome, skillful, and then I shouldn't wipe it off, should I? Unwholesome, unskillful, and then we can talk about neutral. What kinds of results did it lead to here? Now, the short answer, again, in very general, generic type terms, it's pretty straightforward. Wholesome actions lead to what we might call happiness. Or you could say, if you like, pleasant experiences. The unwholesome actions lead to, right, you probably guess, unhappiness / unpleasant experiences. And neutral, the technical term for the results is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Okay, let's just call these neutral as well. I think it's just a little bit simpler. So this is an important kind of connection here. Wholesome actions lead to happiness. Now you could potentially say, oh, well then maybe this kind of definition of ethical or unethical is based on the result. If my result is a happy result, then it was an ethical action. But that's usually not how it's described. It's really said, there are these certain mental states and mental attitudes will lead to happiness. These certain other ones, craving, aversion, pride, anger, jealousy, will lead to unhappy, unpleasant, or even painful results. And neutral. So this kind of principle is a really crucial principle in this whole process. Another really important part of this whole concept is best described when we come back to this metaphor of planting a seed, right? We work, we do some kind of labor, and we get some kind of result in fruit, which is, say, like, I don't know if this will make sense to you all. Like cause leads to like result. Or to say, if you plant mangoes, you're going to get mangoes. If you plant bitter melon, you're going to get bitter melon. Right? So your kind of cause and your result are of the same kind of thing. They're of the same type. Now this principle is also like a really important one as well. Classic example of in the Buddha's teachings and the sutras of this is the story of a young man. He was a young Brahmin, came from a very good Brahmin family, had all his good Brahminical training. And so when he heard the Buddha teaching kind of karma like this, he's like, that's a bit interesting. He went and asked the Buddha, and he had a number of questions. The questions were like a set of pairs, kind of along the lines of, when we look at all the living beings in the world, and let's just narrow it down. Let's just talk about like humans for now. We see that some humans, living beings, some people, are long-lived. They have long lives. They live for a very good old age. Some, however, have very short lives. They do not live very long at all. They die young, shall we say. So why is it that some people live to an old age, and why is it that some people live to a short age? Related question. So that's like the first pair. They're kind of like two opposites, right? The second pair was, so why is it that some people have good health and some people have poor health and sickness? Right? So old age doesn't always mean good health, and like dying young doesn't always imply bad health. Right? They're two distinct things. Why is it that some people are attractive and handsome and beautiful, and some people are just ugly? Right? Why is it that some people have wealth and resources, and some people are very poor and without resources? Why is it that, I'm trying to remember all the questions he asked. Why is it that some people are respected in society, and they receive respect and honor from others, and that some people get no respect at all? Why is it that some people are wise and some people are foolish? So you had this whole bunch of questions, right? Two kind of like contrary opposites. The first ones are always these kind of ones that we typically think of as good, right? Or long life and health and physical beauty and wealth and status or power and wisdom. And then short life, illness, poverty, being unattractive, no status, and ignorance. Now, each of these questions is individual, and it's important to note that in a kind of a narrow sense of the Karma's idea of cause to effect, they are individual questions. The causes and effects of each of these are specific. Though we can still say, though, that they do interrelate. So what I mean is, I'll give an example. Is this, just to say that the causes for good health or poor health have specific causes. The causes for wealth and poverty are a different set of causes. However, this does not rule out the fact that they can also affect each other. I mean, we know this very clearly now. If poverty, for example, often leads to poor health, the inability to lead a healthy lifestyle. So when we're talking about the causes here, we're talking about the primary causes. We're not talking about the only causes. So let's just think about some of those. Okay, on this principle of like cause leads to like result. Anyone want to guess what would be a cause for good health?
Exercise.
Not the answer that the Buddha gave, but I wouldn't disagree with you. I mean, because, like for example, if I say, is exercise a wholesome activity or an unwholesome activity? How do we don't usually think about exercise as like an ethical action, right? I mean, it could be, but often we don't. So think about it, you've got good health. If you want good health for yourself, then it requires an action of bringing good health also to others. Right? So exercise would be one, but not the only one. Maybe we can flip it. We can talk about the other way around. Poor health. By bringing about poor health, including two big categories here. Illness and injury. Let's divide up into these two categories. Because you can say the same with good health. It means not just good health, like freedom from disease, it also means freedom from injury. Right? Maybe you think about the injury one. If you want to be free from injury yourself, we're going to have to refrain from causing injury to others.
So what if someone's like bring kind of good health conditions for other people, but then he or she lives a very unhealthy lifestyle themselves?
Yeah, well then that would, I'd say, another case of a real example of being complex and having both elements. Yeah, it could be like that. Yeah. So what it says, if you want to have, good health for yourself, you have to provide conditions for good health for others as well. So how could we, like, say, provide good health for others? I mean, you could encourage them to exercise. So I'd still put that in that category there.
But it's very complicated about this case.
Right. But just think of some examples, some ways.
Like, don't smoke, because if I smoke, it causes like...
Okay, sure. Okay, that's a good example. That also it helps yourself, but also helps others too. Sure. Okay. What else?
Medical professional.
Yeah. What if you were, say, a doctor or a nurse, and your job is every day you're helping people to lead a healthy lifestyle? Right? You are very specifically trying to cure people of their illnesses. Right? Under the Buddha's idea of like cause leads to like result, that would then, by having that intention that others are healthy, that will lead to health in oneself. Now, okay, you might be thinking, but I know a doctor and he's very unwell. Okay, remember, the entirety of life is composed of literally hundreds, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of individual actions. When they all come together, you're also talking about over multiple lifetimes, things are going to get very messy, right, and very complex. Okay, so keep that in mind. But let's just try to think about these basic like principles for good health. Yeah, like being a medical profession. Just encouraging other people to lead a healthy lifestyle. Don't smoke, don't drink, at least don't drink too much. Try to exercise.
Or like running a vegetarian buffet. If I
Sure.
provide
Food was always mentioned as a good one.
for people.
Providing food for other people.
That's what
Food.
That's why women live longer, because their mothers they give food.
I've often actually wondered about that, like, and like by applying like Buddhist ideas to like that actual situation where I think pretty much most countries in the world women live longer than men. There's probably many other reasons as well. Could it be related to like often the traditional nurturing role of women / mothers in society? Possibly. Obviously not quite that simple, but okay. Think about long life versus short life. I mean, the quickest way to shorten someone's life is to simply what? Kill them, harm them, attack them, right? So short, that would be the first one. Killing others. Now remember, we're not just talking about people killing people. Most people don't kill other people. But killing other animals is not at all uncommon. Right? It's not at all uncommon. So this idea of, ending the lives of other creatures is not good for one's own life. Basic principle. Okay. Helping others to stay alive is even also good for one's own life. Okay, so like to life. Okay, let's think of another example. Wealth versus poverty. So if we were looking to get wealth for ourselves, what would be the underlying principle? You're getting the idea, right? Providing wealth for others. Right? So what's the simplest way to provide wealth for others?
To offer your services.
Offer your services. Donate to charity, support people.
Create business.
Create business, yeah. If you could come up with a you know, like the micro, what do they call it, the micro loan system that was started a few years ago now in, where was it, Bangladesh, right? Huge numbers of people, particularly women, who were mainly just kind of like working maybe by themselves or a couple of them in a situation where they were doing like little handcrafts. But to get the materials that they needed, they had to buy them off some merchant person, very, very wealthy. They were selling at very high prices, but they couldn't afford them. They then had to borrow money from the person that they buy them off with very high interest rates. They then make the products, sell them, but what they sell is only enough to cover last week's loans. And effectively they are just working non-stop, never actually making any money, because they can never get out of that cycle where they didn't need to loan. So he set up a system whereby he just got them enough to get them like out of 1 day or 1 week's worth of loan, cut off then their interest payments, and bam, what they were then making could then, instead of just pay off the debt, could then be a profit. Right?
But the merchant had been getting very rich off of not making other people rich, in that example.
He had at that time, yeah. So we say, no, remember we're talking about, you weren't here last week, so we're talking about Buddhist terms about multiple lifetimes, right? So when results come in, it's going to be our next topic to talk about, when do the results come in, right? Results don't kick in immediately. But we'll say on the principle, if that nasty merchant has, you know, made his fortune by exploiting literally hundreds of thousands of people, that result is not going to be so nice. You might have made a lot now. He's not only, you know, he might have money now, he might have the money now, but he has literally hundreds, if not thousands of people who, quite frankly, hate him or her, right?
Yeah.
If that person themselves, for some reason, loses all their wealth and their profit, it's not looking good. It's going to be very hard for that person to then come back and say, can you help me out? Oh, you, the person that exploited our whole village for 20 years? Let's think about that.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, there's going to be...
Is the part I was missing.
Yeah, so, you know, and then how long is it going to go on? It's going to be a long process. So back to that example. So, you know, it could be that somebody comes up with an economic model and system whereby you eliminate people from poverty, right? Giving, generosity. And this is kind of one where maybe in modern times seems a bit counterintuitive. This idea that we often think about money, economic transactions as a zero-sum game. If I lose out, you win. If I win, you lose out. This idea that we can come to like a win-win situation, no, can't work like that. But what we're talking about here is, you know, the underlying principle is something different. When I support you when you need help, chances are you're going to support me when I need help. And it works as a way of almost like collectively pooling our resources. And when we think about a lot of things, say in society, where things are shared and used in a whole community, there's great advantages. I mean, just think of this classroom here. I do not have the ability to provide a classroom of this kind of space by myself. Right? Now, the university does, but like the university at the moment, if they have this classroom on a Saturday, it sits here and it does nothing. It has no function. If they're willing to then use it in a community basis, like a class like this, we both get the advantage. The university gets this classroom when they need to have their classes. I get a classroom when we want to have our classes. We actually we both win, right? It's not like I have the classroom and you don't, or you have the classroom and I don't, right? So even sharing is an important part of this kind of wealth model, not just necessarily I give to you or you give back to me.
But at the same time, university has to pay for air conditioning and the light while you're using it. And
They
if
do.
we are not here, they will not pay for it.
They
so
do.
it's
And
kind
I'm
of
very-
like win-win.
I'm very
but
grateful
it's,
to the head of the department.
Yeah, I mean it's like not like it's a win-win, but it has some like details.
Sure.
Small loss, big win.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure, but maybe it has this other effect as well. By then providing university facilities to you here, this maybe in a small way gives all of you just a slightly better like attitude towards the university or something like that, right?
Mm.
That actually benefits the university too in a kind of a non-quantifiable
Yeah.
way. Right? Okay, another example. Wealth. So status, for example. Well, let's just say something like, status or respect. Right. So how do we get to say respect in society? And some people demand it, like respect my authority, right? I am whatever I am. You should therefore respect me. But we also have a common idea that like we have to earn people's respect, right? What's the simplest way to do that?
Give respect.
Give respect to people. I was actually just telling this to my undergrads like on Wednesday because our classes are like three hours, and then the middle hour is they go into discussion groups and talk about our topics, and the last hour they come back and each group has to give like a very short report. NTU students are usually pretty good because we do have very good students here. I mean, it's the best, one of the best, if not the best, university in Taiwan. So our students are good, but I know in a lot of other places, and still here, some students are a bit reluctant to stand up in front of everyone and give like an oral presentation. And I know in a lot of places people are very, to give a public talk to a lot of people is terrifying. So I gave one little tip. It won't always solve the problem, but I said, if it's important when somebody else is speaking that we give our attention to them. Because when it's our turn up the front, I mean the worst thing that I've said to you, one of the worst things when you're up the front is if everyone down the way, no one is listening to you and they're all just chatting away or doing something else. It's very hard just for the speaker to keep focused, right? So I said, hey, when somebody's up giving a little report, you still sitting down here, can you please just put down your phones and stuff, please don't chat, just give them their attention, because when it's your turn, that's what you would hope from your classmates, right? So this is just kind of a simple, like you said, if you want respect, give respect, right? And this kind of works on a number of levels as well. So this principle, like cause leads to like result. Real examples, of course, complicated, right? Other things like praise, if we like to be praised, right? If you want to be praised, one of the best things you can do, praise others, right? If you want to be criticized, criticize others, right? Maybe ideally we want a bit of a balance, whereby we praise for the good, we provide kind but constructive criticism in appropriate circumstances for others, right? And hopefully we'll receive the same in kind. Right? So lots of other examples. One of the interesting ones, just one more out of that list that that young man asked the Buddha was being attractive. You might want to think about that one. According to this theory, what makes someone attractive or not?
Find beauty in others. Give attractiveness.
Give attractiveness. Put that in I bought you some mascara.
Yeah, I was
Got
saying
you a free
finding
haircut
beauty
coupon.
is the giving attractiveness.
Sorry.
I was saying that, like, finding beauty is giving attractiveness.
That's still
It's
a bit
like being
abstract for me.
attractive is giving attractiveness.
That's still a bit abstract for me. What does it mean to find beauty?
Well, attractiveness is also abstract, so this is going to be tough.
Okay. True. Anyone want to narrow in on a detail?
Stop judging by appearance.
True. That would certainly help. Just human society in general. One of the ones they refer to is actually patience. And I think the idea being that, like, Have you ever met people that they're like just their regular daily expression on their face looks like they have a particular emotion? I know there's this term, it's not a very nice term, called resting bitchy face. There's some people just always look like they're pissed off about something, but they're not. That's just how they look. Right? Some people they just always look like, I can't do it because I don't have that. They just look very like happy all the time. Right? So I think the idea here is that patience is related to, when they talk about in Buddhism, circumstances that would typically make us like angry and annoyed, and we, your face when you're really angry and annoyed, it's not attractive, right? And like if you're like that all the time, it's gonna like ingrain on your features, and that's related to the anger, actually. So the flip side to anger, remember when we talked about the unwholesome state of anger or aversion? What was the?
Love and compassion.
Yeah, it's a loving and compassion. So that kind of emotional attitude, right? So the body, in a sense, is kind of a reflection of what's going on inside. I always talk about things like, oh, if you see a bride on her wedding day and she's like just so beautiful, and not just talking about this lovely dress and all this kind of stuff, but probably on that day she's just so in love. And it kind of comes out in the way in which we look and the whole vibe, the magnetic field that we project around us. Similar idea, right? Flip side, of course, would be anger. Angry people can be a bit ugly. And you might think, oh, what about, you might know someone who's famous fashion model, but who's ugly, or who's very angry all the time. Okay, so there can be a bit of a delay there, right? It's going to take some time for that emotional state to work its way through to a result. So let's just flip into that now. What is the time frame from here to here? Yep, best answer. I don't know. Or just like, no, there is no set time. And let's just think about this idea of a karma, an action, that mental state, as like the planting of a seed. And our fruit here is like, you can say the plant needs to sprout, it needs to grow, it needs to mature, it might flower and then fruit at the end. So, how long does it take for a plant to bear fruit? Well, some grasses or wildflowers, I don't know about days, maybe weeks or months, just very short lifestyle, like an annual plant. Some plants, they need to grow very large. Like avocados, and they need like 5 or 7 or 10 years or something before they can have fruit. I'm horrified by that idea. There's no set time, right? There's no set time. But there can be conditions for it. So let's just think about this. The emotional state, the mental state, is a seed which gets planted into a field. So what's this field here? The field is the person that our action, or the person or the thing that our action is directed towards. So if I do something for you, I don't know, what do I do for you?
Free class.
Free class, there you go. Okay, free class, and you are my field, right? And of course, we need to do some work on it. I'm talking about work, not quite as the karma itself here. I'm just doing that, tending my little garden here, and then we might have some flowers, and then we might have some fruit. It's quite a process, right? Now, like seed leads to like result. I'm not going to plant a mango seed and get a watermelon. not going to plant a bean and get a pumpkin. Like cause leads to like result. But if I plant one bean, how many beans am I going to get on my bean plant? How many am I going to get? Again, I don't know. I mean, it might not even get that far, right? It might just wither and die kind of along the way. Maybe I'm a master farmer, and I every year I grow beans or pumpkins, and I'm trying to break the world record for the largest pumpkin. I grow this 3-ton pumpkin that appears in the newspaper or something, right? I'm going to need a lot of skill. What am I going to need too? My field. Now the field is going to affect what kind of fruit you get, right? What kind of result you get. Now in Buddhist terms, the field as a person or some other living being, the higher the, shall we say, the ethical state of mind or the kind of the purity of mind of that person, the better the field. If you do a good deed or even a bad deed, you do a deed for a very ethical and very good, pure, wholesome person, the results come in much stronger. Now that can be good and bad, right? It can be good and bad. If you do, you know sometimes some friends, if they say, can you loan me $10? And if I give this person $10, they're going to pay me back and they're going to buy me a gift. And if I say, no, don't get me something special, they'll do it anyway. Because they're a good friend, they're loyal, they're true to their word. Some friends, if they say, loan me $10, like, you're even going to deny I gave it to you and I'm not going to see this money again. Right? Similar principle. Think of another case, for example, we hear in the Amazon illegal logging, killing environmental activists. And in South America, there have been many cases of priests and nuns who are trying to protect the forests for the local people, and even they are killed. Right? And when we hear activists being killed, I feel like what a crazy world. When I hear some activist Catholic nun was killed, I just think what kind of a sick, crazy person does this? We have a much stronger feeling if it's like a good person gets hurt, right? And even if you think of what happens to that in court, that punishment is going to come down much heavier if that action's been done against what we call a good person. So the field is an important part of this process. Now the work here can be pretty much anything that we do between doing our act towards this person or this other living being and before the results start kicking in. And that can include a lot of things. It's a bit like the watering and how much sunshine or how much fertilizer you give. So one simple example is like the idea of regret, or the flip side of regret, rather than saying in English. Praise for that action. If you do a negative deed, if you do a bad deed and you regret it, maybe you accidentally, you hurt a friend. If you very quickly go to that friend and you apologize and say how sorry you are, things will work out better, quicker. If you don't, and if you double down and you're there, no, I should have called you a lying, horrible person, because you truly are, and if you keep saying that over and over again, right, what's going to happen? That friendship is going to be destroyed even faster, right? So regret, remorse, repentance will affect this process. Now again, remember we're talking about here can be wholesome or unwholesome actions. So regret isn't always bad. Do a good deed and you regret it, it's actually going to lead to less of a good result. But if you do a bad deed and you regret it, it's going to lead to less of a bad result as well. And the flip side, if you do a bad deed and you say, yeah, haha, I'm glad I did that, it's going to strengthen the result. If you do a good deed and you're happy with yourself, like, yeah, I did 100 hours volunteer work and I'm glad I did it, and I'm telling my friends and encouraging them to do it too, it will further strengthen that result. That's the case. So when we do an action, between the action and the result, the time frame is not set. Some plants, fruit and flower, very, very quickly. Some take months, some take years. So likewise, for karma, in Buddhist sense, some would say the result comes in this lifetime. It might come in the lifetime after, or it might come 10, 100, 1,000 lifetimes away. Depends on certain circumstances being ready. But we can't say that it's like deterministic, that, oh, if you did this, this will definitely be your result. We can't even say one bean is going to lead to one bean. One bean, or 1 grain of rice, you plant it, you nurture it very carefully, you get one little rice thing with another 100 grains. Next year you plant the 100 grains and you nurture them and you get 10,000 grains. You nurture it, a couple of years, you've gone from 1 grain of rice to an entire field. That's possible. You could take an entire field of rice and try to plant them, and if you don't know what you're doing, you could lose it all. So quantity, from cause to result, again, is not fixed. There's this potential that it will grow massively, potential that it will also shrink massively, and a lot's got to do with how we work it. And again, in this example, it's like a skillful farmer or an unskillful farmer, like a champion pumpkin growing farmer, or someone that has no idea what they're doing. And this idea of actions being skillful or unskillful. Right? Now that skillful or unskillful is then also related to, back to one of our intentions, wisdom or ignorance. It's one of those big factors. If we can understand this process, and it takes a lot of work to observe our own actions and how they pan out and what influences it along the way. And we can also observe it in other people too. We develop wisdom, our ability increases, and our ability to then make even small good actions become very powerful good results. To eliminate negative actions, or even if we do negative actions, unwholesome actions, to be able to make sure that they don't lead to a big bad result either. This ability to then work things towards the results that we want becomes much stronger. That's some basic principles. What else have I got in here? Okay. Here's some other things we can do about time. It's short. Okay, this is a lot. It can be a bit abstract, but any questions or thoughts?
How is flower distinct from fruit?
Oh, it's a good point. A lot of, most teachings don't refer to a flower, but there are a couple of teachings that do refer to that. And it can tend to be something like, often this is used in actual stories from the Buddhist time. And it was like, say, somebody does a good deed, and then something good starts, the good result starts to kick in. But it's not like the fullness of the result. It's just like, this is just the start of it. There's still much more to come along the way. So, I don't know, to think of an example. Maybe someone let's say you become a billionaire for whatever reason. I'm going to say you did it ethically. Good on you, okay. You choose to take the majority of your wealth $900 million and set up an organization to, I don't know, what kind of charity do you want to do?
Well, we just talked about the rainforest. Let's fix it.
Okay, we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to need more than 900 million, but let's start. Okay, maybe you, I don't know, you buy some incredibly huge chunk of the Amazon which has been logged, and you employ people and volunteer yourself to like replant and all this kind of thing. Okay, so while you're working on this, you know, it comes up in my Facebook feed because it's trending now on Google, on like Yahoo News, you know, billionaire donates most of his wealth to saving the rainforest, and everyone's talking about you and saying, oh man, this guy's so cool, and like he's a hero, and everyone should be, you know, following this guy and seeing what he's doing, and they're giving you awards, and you're getting invited to all the cool activist parties and all this kind of stuff. Everyone loves you. Everyone thinks it's great. Now, this isn't the full result of your action yet. This is just like a little herald of what's to come. You know, your actual action was, you know, this desire not just to save the rainforest, but you want to save the whole of humanity and all the other animals on the planet, right? And you invested 90% of your wealth, and you've quit your job and you're doing this full time now. What kind of results is that going to lead to? Probably it's going to take you to somewhere where, you know, some place where the whole environment isn't like crashing down and crumbling and this kind of thing. What you're getting now is just kind of recognition and praise and this kind of thing. That's not the result per se, right? It's just a little sign of things to come. There are also some other examples that we could talk about that when it comes down to how karma and results pan out across lifetimes. So at the time of death, what starts to happen is our death is a process. It's not just, it's kind of like you're alive, you're dead. But it's kind of a process whereby the senses start to shut down. First the external senses, but the mind is still working and active. And once the outer senses start to shut down, we're kind of no longer connected with this world out here, but we're then drawn back into the mind, and there's a lot of stuff in the mind. Like the whole experience is not just from this lifetime, but before that. So lots of things are going to come out. And this is a lot like dreaming, right? Different experiences that we've had during the day or recently or whatever start to come up and manifest in our dreams. So it's a bit similar during the time of death. Different things will come up in the mind. So people during this state, and it might not even be when they're kind of unconscious into this state, but even while they're still very much alive, but about to go into this death state, of having like visions and experiences that come from deep within the mind, but are indicators of where they're going to be reborn in the next life. And so sometimes these are kind of like, they're just like signs, but those themselves aren't the actual result. It's just like a sign of what's to come. So some of these examples, I think in popular terms, are better known from people having near-death experiences, which have been very well studied in the last couple of decades. And people, I mean, there's kind of things, everything goes black, and then there's a tunnel of light, one travels along the tunnel. One sees various different images, often of people that have deceased, that they know, and perhaps at the end of the tunnel, some very powerful, say, religious symbol, varies a lot depending on their own religion, okay? This is all very typical of all these experiences. But then of like another world, and some of these, for some people, they're these just like these very like heavenly, beautiful worlds of, yeah, it's just a paradise. But other people also have ones that are like absolutely horrific, and all sorts of nasty things going on. So when these experiences are coming before the actual result comes, it's like a pointer of what's going to happen. So that's
Is it supposed to be a warning in any sense to where you can alter your action once you see it, or is it just kind of like,
I'd say that at any point we can do something to try to move things. But, you know, think if you've got an apple tree, when the apple tree starts blossoming, I mean, unless you like cut down the whole tree or something, or rip off every flower, you're gonna already got a fair idea of you've got apples and this is kind of how many you've got. So it's never too late, but by the time you get to the flower, you're getting pretty close.
So this may be a topic for a later week, but does this tie into the death and rebirth thing? Your next life?
We didn't originally have that for a topic for the future, but we can cover it if you like.
So essentially, like, your actions in this lifetime can have repercussions to what you potentially will be born
Sure.
in the next
Sure.
life.
Well, and not just actions in this life, because as we go through the dying process, I mean, think of it a bit like dreams. You know, like often our dreams are related to what we've been doing recently, but not all of our dreams are like that. So death can be a bit like, you know, how we've lived in this lifetime is going to be a big factor, and then this gets divided up into different types. So the first thing, the most powerful karmic force at the time of death is this powerful karma, wholesome or unwholesome. Maybe we did like something one time that was this like incredibly heroic event, and it's such an intense experience that's like stuck in our mind. Or it could be something incredibly painful or difficult or bad, this like sense of guilt that like we take to our deathbeds. Those things, good chance they'll come up. It might have just been like something that happened one day, but it was very powerful. It might have really shaped us. So that's one big one. Could be wholesome, unwholesome. Another important one is then things that are habitual. They're not necessarily big things, but the things we did over and over again. So like an example of, like a doctor, you know, they see sick people and they try to understand their illnesses and try to lead them to a healthy state. That's just what they do all the time. If they're not focusing on something in particular, that's just where their mind goes, right? Just like you do Buddhist studies, that's this kind of default state of mind is thinking about these kinds of things, right? But it could also be negative things, like a butcher. You know, they look at animals and they just immediately think, well, how am I going to cut them up and kill them? It's just what they do. It's just this like pure like habit. You could deliberately try to not think of it, but what we're talking about here is just habit. And then there's also the possibility at death of just something else could occur. You could just be thinking about something you saw on TV last night, or someone could come along and start talking to you about something. Right? But these would be things in this life, but it's not just in this life. There can be all sorts of other things. And what's in that big storehouse of the mind? Whew. You name it, we've done it in some lifetime. Right? This is part of the reason why Buddhism, and traditionally speaking, pretty much all religions put a big emphasis on how someone dies and making sure at the time of the death they are in a positive state of mind, right? And so even encouraging oneself, reminding oneself of one's good deeds that you've done, having other people around us to remind us of those things, positive state, so that as we go, it's taking us in a good direction. Is that enough for a short answer for now?
Mm-hmm. So does that have to do, is it Hinduism then that has the next life is determined by the actions you do in the current life, and you will be born into a certain caste? Or
that's kind of a simplistic explanation, but I don't even think in Hinduism it's entirely just what you do in this lifetime.
Also
Yeah.
previous lifetimes.
Mm.
So if that's the case, and you're believing in other lives or rebirth, then it would be fair to say that someone who's born into poverty, for example, is because of their previous lives' poor behavior, so we shouldn't feel any bad.
So, well, this is a potentially big problem of it becoming a kind of fatalism, which leads to social inaction. And to be honest, it's not just Hinduism that has that attitude. There's a lot of other societies that believe if someone is poor, it must be because they're lazy and because they're drug addicts and they just need to get a job. Usually, it's not because of any of these reasons, right? And therefore, they deserve to be in that state, so therefore we shouldn't help them. But Buddhism certainly doesn't have that attitude. It's not a case of, and people even say this, and this really gets me like, so, if they are poor, if I was to help them, then that would stop them experiencing their karma, and therefore that would stop them like having their karma, and I'd be messing with the law of karma. What? Who's to say that their karma isn't to have you come along and help them get out of their poverty? So never mind how they got there. Think about the other way around. If I help them now, I've got the opportunity to do a compassionate act. If I don't, I miss out on an opportunity. Take a bit of altruism in the sense of helping others is helping myself. Just help them. It's a good deed. It's going to help yourself. And leave the judgment about whether they deserve to be in that settle aside, because we don't know why they are like that. And we could flip it around too, like, if that was me, how would I like others to just say, well, you're poor because you deserve to be poor, so suck it up. I wouldn't like that. So treat others as we do. But it's true that it very often is used in that kind of way. To then just say people deserve it, so we shouldn't help them. But
if the intention through positive action is to benefit in the future, is that a major kind of nullifier of the action?
So the idea of desire. Okay, well, remember when we talked about like desire as a unwholesome state, I was talking about the sensual desire. But it could be, you could be like, I'm going to save the rainforest so that I get my face in the newspaper and everyone thinks I'm a hero. Okay. Again, real life example, that might just be one factor. If you honestly did not care about the rainforest at all, and that's the only reason, then you're gonna have a problem. And I'd say probably you won't succeed, to be honest. Probably most people that do a good deed have a little bit of kind of ego in them, and that might get in the way at some point. But coming back to the idea of doing good deeds to get the result out of it is not ideal. But I often think people go a bit overboard and sort of say, see somebody doing a good deed, and then we just say, they're just doing it for themselves. That can actually be a bit of jealousy involved in that. Okay, maybe it is, but probably I wouldn't do much better myself. Let me praise the good action. Let me praise and recognize the good action at least. And the other side, I'll just be aware whether or not I do the same thing. Ultimately though, that will be a problem. We do know Buddhist ultimates, you really want to liberate it. But it's important that we first at least develop those practices and get in that habit of acting in this wholesome way. Once we get that into a very deep habit, then we can work on eliminating the kind of self-serving ego motivation that might be behind it. But we do that after, because before that, the ego can actually help as a motivator. And for 99% of people, it does actually help. It's like a motivating force. And we remove it later. Then, if we do that, ideally, we still have this very wholesome, positive action that benefits ourselves and others, but we're also free of attachment. Easier said than done, right? Sure. See, a lot of you are thinking about this. It's a lot of stuff. Okay. today we've been talking about the law of karma, cause and effect. We were really only talking about karma, we didn't get into cause and effect in a general sense. But next week we'll be talking about the Four Noble Truths, which is also very tightly related to the idea of cause and effect. So we'll kind of be continuing with this, but taking it out in a broader sense. So if you think of any more questions in the meantime, just note them down for now, and we can continue talking about them later. If you've got any questions, just like anything comes up from this week, one or two people like messaged me since last week